Welcome back to Sports Radio 95.9 The Fan. My name's Mark, and yes, this is the Mark Moses Show, weekday afternoons from 3 to 6 p.m. And right now here on the Club 52 hotline, good friend of mine from the city of Orlando, covers college football for the great Orlando Sentinel. His name is Matt Murschel. We're going to go over some college football headlines today. Matt, how you doing today?
Pretty good, Mark. How are you doing?
Hey, I'm doing just fine, and I have many things to talk with you about in the world of college football. I know we're in World Cup soccer mode right now, but Urban Meyer, I want to start with him. Former Gator coach. He was at some recent, football camp, and he said the '08 Gators are the greatest team ever. Let's start with that. Are the '08 Gators the greatest team ever?
I think you can make a good case on that. I mean, I also have to throw out there's some good Miami teams, back in the early 2000s. I think Nebraska had a really good team with Tommy Frazier at quarterback. They did a really great job. I think they were 2 years in a row they were national champions. To say that they're the greatest team ever, I don't necessarily believe that. I mean, I can see why Urban said that because he obviously has an affinity for his programs and what he's been able to do. But, that's a pretty bold statement when you think about how long college football has been around.
That's a Tebow team, though. I mean, he's a Tebow guy. Is that really the reason? I mean, Percy Harving as well. But it was a loaded team, right?
Yeah, There's no denying that team was one of the best, when you look at what they had on that team. But I mean, you're going over what was accomplished, how things have changed over the years. The Tom Osborne teams, back in the mid '90s, when Nebraska was running all over everyone. Those are some pretty good teams. I think you have to look at, Southern Cal, went through a stretch there as well in the 2000s. Back in the 70s, Southern Cal had a really good team as well. And again, like I said, Miami, it's going to be hard to knock a couple of those Miami teams that were really dominant when you look at what they were able to do in some of those games as well. So I understand why Urban said what he said. Again, he feels like that was the best ever. But let's be honest, there's been a lot of football played over the last, over 150 years. So it's kind of hard to make that just kind of general assessment just based on what he's seen as a coach. Okay,
here's my two. In the modern era, 95 Huskers, 01 Miami Hurricanes for the national title. If we're going video game, that's my game. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I would agree with those. I mean, you look at what was accomplished with those teams. I mean, the Huskers were an amazing, group of players. And again, this is back in when things were a little bit different. We look at college football, and you look at what Tommy Frazier was able to do. I thought, like I said, Tom Osborne as the coach then, did a great job with that program. And then, you look at Miami. You look at what Jimmy Johnson did there. You look at the incredible run they had of success. And I also base that, too, on the fact that you look at the players that went on to play in the NFL. Those Miami teams had, just a slew of players who went on to play in the NFL and have successful NFL careers. So it's awful hard to look back and say, one team is definitely the best team in college football. But I think you can make the case that all those teams, including the Florida team, were some of the best, maybe top 25 ever to play.
We're here with Matt Murschel, Orlando Sentinel, talking college football headlines here on the Club 52 hotline. Give him a follow on Twitter at OS Matt Murschel. It's a must if you like college football. And you wrote a recent article about transfers, especially the quarterback position in college football for this fall. Number one on the list has to be Jacob Coker, the guy at Florida State who backed up Jameis. Now, is he going to be the starter at Bama and lead that 500-pound gorilla, which is the Crimson Tide?
Yeah, I think it looks like he is going to be the guy. He was a top quarterback coming out of that state, before he signed the play at Florida State, and if you believe what Jimbo Fisher said, before last year, he was really much neck and neck when it came down to him and Jameis Winston to try to get the starting job that eventually Winston went on to win and went on to obviously win the Heisman and the national championship. So if you believe that, Coker's almost as talented as Jameis Winston. I think he's going to have a lot of tools around him. I think he's going to step into a situation at Alabama where he's going to have a lot of talented players. He has a new offensive coordinator in Lane Kiffin. So there's going to be some potential there to have some success. I'm sure that Nick Saban, as we know, is going to take his time when it comes to picking a quarterback. He's got a couple of guys as well on his team that, are guys who've been there for the last couple of years. So, but I think Coker's probably going to end up being the guy who takes over the reins.
See, this is what's interesting with the SEC. Is from the quarterback position. You look at Bama, new quarterback, LSU, Texas A&M, maybe Georgia, I can go on Missouri, South Carolina. Aren't there a lot of new quarterbacks for this conference coming up this new season?
Yeah, there are. I mean, it was amazing because you look at last year, and this league was really dominated by the quarterback play. You had Johnny Manziel, you had Aaron Murray, you had A.J. McCarron, you had Zach Mettenberger at LSU. This league was really deep when it came to the quarterback position, especially talented quarterbacks. So when all those guys obviously left, then it opens the door now to having a season where there aren't a lot of returning quarterbacks who have a lot of experience in this league. I think you look at a guy like Jeff Driscoll, at Florida, even though he was hurt most of last year, he's a guy that's got some experience that's coming back. You look at Auburn, Nick Marshall, I think he's probably going to be the quarterback, the top quarterback in the league next year. So Bo Wallace at Ole Miss. So a couple guys who maybe have experience are coming back, but really this league is going to be a bunch of new, fresh faces at quarterback.
Can you say Jeff Driscoll's an elder statesman then? Is that okay to say when you look at this conference?
Well, I think you could say that. I don't necessarily if you put him, if you put him as one of the top quarterbacks, but I mean, obviously he has the experience. He's played. He knows what's going on. He's done the duty. My question is, he just needs to take that next step and kind of develop into an elite SEC quarterback. And I don't think he's done that because he hasn't really had the opportunity, not only with the injuries, but when you're looking on the fact that he's going to have his third offensive coordinator going into the season.
What's interesting? We're here with Matt Murschel, Orlando Sentinel. Sticking with the Gators real quick. What's funny is, we're trying to get ready for the new season for Gators and SEC here on our station. And I tell fans or I tell a client, hey, trust me, they're going to be better than 4-8. That will not happen again. Is that okay to say, Matt, that they will be better than 4-8, or is this maybe going to be another long season?
Well, they better be better than 4-8, or Will Muschamp's out of a job. I mean, I think they will be. I mean, if Jeff Driscoll stays healthy, I think Kurt Roper is a good hire as an offensive coordinator. I think he's a guy that could come in, and he has a long history of developing quarterbacks. And to me, that's always been the key with this team is they really need to develop the quarterback position. It's something that really hasn't been done since Dan Mullen did it back with Tim Tebow. Back in the days of Urban Meyer. They really just haven't had luck and success of developing a quarterback, and I think that's something that Roper is going to have to really do. If they can get Driscoll to buy into the offense, to really kind of start, developing, reading the lines, reading the blitzes, looking at the defenses, picking out guys that he needs to go to in certain situations. If Roper can do that, which I think he will be able to do, I think Florida will have some success. The problem that the Gators are going to have is, again, I don't think they have any of the big playmakers that they really need to have moving forward. I think they can win 7 or 8 games, but let's be honest, the schedule's going to be tough. They go to Alabama. They're going to have to play Alabama on the road. They face LSU. They face a South Carolina team that's loaded with experience who probably more than likely will end up winning the East. So, again, there's a lot of hurdles there, but I think they can at least be better than the 4 wins they were last year.
What about Joker Phillips? I mean, what was it? Late last week, you had the story where he resigns as the wide receiver coach and one of the big recruiters for the Gators. Chris Leak takes over. What really happened? I know there's a lot of message board chatter, but in your opinion, what happened with this story?
Well, you look at it, if it's what everyone is saying that he, committed some sort of bump infraction, when it comes to recruiting. He was seen with a recruit at a restaurant, and that which is a no-no when you look at the NCAA rules. And, there was a lot of speculation that kind of led to him getting fired or stepping down, so to speak. I mean, either way, when you look at this situation, this is not what Will Muschamp needs at Florida. I mean, again, like we talked about, he's a guy coming off a 4-win season. His job was really hanging by a thread, at the end of last year. And Jeremy Foley stepped up, the Florida AD and said, listen, we're going to keep you and bring you back. I have all the faith in you. Now you have an off season where really you need to be focused about football and about the things going on the field. To have this off the field stuff happen where you lose a guy like Joker Phillips, who was a top recruiter in the country, to lose him in a situation like that, it's not something I'm sure that Muschamp and the program really needs to be dealing with. I don't think it's going to impact them that much in the sense of X's and O's, because, again, I think this is Kurt Roper's offense, and I think they're just going to kind of run what's happening. But it does affect you in the sense of it becomes a distraction. Anytime you have a distraction on a team, those are the things that could kind of get in the way of the success that you're trying to achieve.
It's interesting. The Gator quarterback who played last year, Tyler Murphy, is he now the starter at Boston College? Is this a true story, Matt?
Yes. Tyler Murphy graduated. He went on to Boston College, and he's reteamed with Steve Addazio, who was, the former Florida offensive coordinator who actually recruited him, and he's now going to be the starter of the Eagles going into next year. And he's not the only one. Jacoby Brissett, who was, the backup initially to Jeff Driscoll, it was him and Jeff Driscoll were battling it out for the starting job. He transferred. He's now going to be the starter at NC State. So there's a couple of former Gators who are now going to get starting jobs, looks like in the ACC. So it'll be interesting to see how they perform.
We're here with Matt Murschel, Orlando Sentinel. Give him a follow on Twitter. It's a good one. OS Matt Murschel if you like college football here in the state of Florida. And yesterday, you were tweeting this about, is it the Golden Nugget in Vegas, their odds for 2014? They don't like the Gators in a lot of these games, right?
No, when you look at, I think they had 8 games that they actually had early odds on, and I think the Gators were only favored in 3 of them. Against Vanderbilt, I think it was against Tennessee, and it was against Missouri. So, all the other games were heavily underdogs, and which, doesn't surprise me so much. But again, I think there's going to be some games that they're going to be able to maybe surprise some teams. But a lot depends on how they embrace the offense and their defense. I mean, we know what Will Muschamp's been able to do with that defense, and that defense should be strong again. But when like I said, you're on the road against Alabama, you're going to face LSU, you've got South Carolina. Let's not forget Georgia, which is rebuilding in a sense with a new quarterback. We got to face them as well. So there's a lot of hurdles. Then you end the season against Florida State, a team that by most accounts everyone has, as the number one team going into next year. So it's going to be a tough uphill battle for the Gators.
Well, you just said Florida State. They're favored in every single game. I don't blame Vegas for saying I would put them even more higher than the odds makers have them.
Yeah, I think when you look at them, they're probably going to be the odds-on favorite in almost every game. They were double-digit favorites, I think, in the 8 games that the Golden Nugget had them down on, and that's expected. They're going to have. Don't get me wrong, this is going to be a tough schedule when you look at it on paper. I mean, you open up on the road, in Dallas against Oklahoma State, a team that, traditionally has a high-powered offense. You're going to have to face them as well. You've got Clemson. You're going to face Notre Dame at home. That's going to be a big game. And like I mentioned, you got Florida. So, I mean, there's some definitely big hurdles there on the schedule. But this team, as long as they stay healthy and there's no off-the-field distractions, I think the Seminoles are going to make a strong push to try to be a repeat national contender.
We're here with Matt Murschel, Orlando Sentinel. I want to end with this. I don't understand the Ed O'Bannon case like I thought I did, but it just keeps going and it's the Energizer Bunny. Can I just pay Ed O'Bannon like $3 million so this go away? I can't do this anymore.
Well, the funny thing about this is some people assume the Ed O'Bannon case is about money, and it is in the big picture scheme of things, but really this is not a money case. This is all about trying to look at the idea of, when you look at what are rights, the rights that an athlete has when they go to school. When you sign your national letter of intent, do those rights automatically transfer to the school, or do you still own those rights, and how can you get paid and stuff like that? So it's a big picture type thing, but this case isn't, it's not one of those things that's going to go away. This is going to be like the World Cup. This is going to go 3 or 4 weeks. I don't know what group Ed O'Bannon's going to be in, but again, what I'm interested in, honestly, is when Mark Emmert, the president of the NCAA, testifies on Thursday, because I think, he's always had kind of a contentious relationship with the media when it comes to these sort of things, and I think he's going to be interesting on the stand when he's getting grilled by, the attorneys. I've said this before. I kind of picture this kind of in A Few Good Men, where he screams out, "Yes, I ordered the code red," you know what I mean, and that kind of thing, because I think that would be interesting if that happened.
Oh, man. All right. Who's more shady, the NCAA or FIFA? I'll end with that then. That's your bonus question.
Oh, I think it's got to be NCAA in some regards. I mean, I think that, you're talking about an organization that's for years, it's just really not up to speed on what the game has changed. And I think there are things that they're trying to change and try to fix that just aren't really going to be, fixable, and it'll be interesting. So, but I think they got to be neck and neck when you look at shadiness. My dad says it best, where the NCAA with football, they come across like, hey, Michigan's playing Florida on Saturday. If you want to come, you should. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're not making any money off it, so go your team. I mean, that's literally what the NCAA's like. Oh yeah, and and again, when you're an organization that sells jerseys with numbers of players, and you think that's okay, to profit off that, and then you act surprised when people get upset. I mean, that just tells you what kind of mindset that the NCAA has.
Oh, man. His name's Matt Murschel. He plays in the group of death with Team USA and the Orlando Sentinel. Matt, thank you for your insight, and I hope I can get you on again.
All right, thanks a lot. Have a good day.